Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Black Nerd Fridays. I have my lovely co-host with me, Kinky Suds, aka Dr. Suds, aka the Queen of Cosplay on a Budget.
On a
We're here on
budget.
Friday. How you feeling today?
Oh, you know what? I'm glad it's Friday.
Yeah.
It is also right before Halloween. So, you know, it's all about scary movies and
Hmm.
candy, and probably peeking out my window to look at kids who are dressed up in their costumes just to see how many of them actually are dressing up this year. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I also like to see if there's like teenagers or adults who are still trying to dress up as well, because I always laugh at those as well. Because some of them are like really impressive, and others you just go, you're just trying to get by. You're not really putting much thought into that.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I definitely know the feeling. I like to see all that myself. Before we get into what we're gonna be talking about today, what you drinking on? If you're drinking on anything at all.
So I'm gonna do one of those dry nights, okay,
Yeah.
where I'm not drinking any beer, but I am gonna be drinking something that others would consider to be very bad for you and has many different names depending on where you are in the U.S.
Mm.
Drinking that red can, okay, drinking that Coca-Cola, if you want to say the whole name, or Coke,
Yeah.
or for me in the Midwest, drinking some pop,
Yep.
okay, because I guess some people out here in the West Coast call it soda, and I'm like,
We call
but
it pop here too in Buffalo,
that's
but
the only way. That is the
I
only
say
way to
soda
drink it.
though because I've been with my wife for so long, so I say soda. But when I'm talking to my family, like that's local, yeah, it's pop. We say
Pop.
pop. Yeah,
Nope.
it's pop.
I don't care what anybody got to say. But
Yeah.
that would be a great question to put in our debate on our page one day, is to say who says, how many of y'all say it's soda or pop? I would
Look,
be
my
curious
other
to see that.
family in New Orleans, they call it cold drink. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be it could be Pepsi, it could
Everything's a
be
cold.
Coca Cola. Yeah,
Everything's cold. Yeah,
it's
cold drink.
cold drink.
Everything. Give me that
Um,
cold drink. You're like, well, which one? The purple one, the red one? What you want?
exactly,
The Coke.
exactly. Well, let
What
me
are you
tell you what
drinking?
I'm drinking on today. I have Black is
Ooh,
Beautiful from Beer
yay!
Tree. You know what I mean? Some old school, but it's here. What is
Old
this?
school.
9%, 10%. I don't know if it's good. I had this for a year. It might not be good.
Ooh,
And
well,
just
it's a
in case it's
stout.
not,
It should still be able to.
yeah, I don't know. But if it's not, I got the OG, the Pyrod or P-Rod, depending on how you want to pronounce
I
it. This is
like
the
it. I
Belgian
like it.
Golden Ale,
Nice.
10.5%. So
Nice.
we're gonna get into it. But let's get into what we're talking about today.
Yeah, what are we talking about today?
My show. This was the banger right here. This was something I've been waiting for, and I've been telling y'all for like the past 3 months. Yo, you gotta watch this. You gotta watch it. To Your Eternity. This show is crazy, crazy, crazy. And the topic is, what does it mean to live forever? So we're gonna get into all that, why I came up with that theme, etc. And y'all figure out, what the reason was behind it. But this is just a very, very good show. And we're gonna just get right into it. We don't know where our other co-host is. He's running late as usual. So
He might be having kid duty. Kid duty's
yeah,
a
he
big
might.
thing. You know what I'm
He
saying?
just might be. He might be.
Kids
So
are kids are crazy.
what we got here? Well, oh yeah, hold on, wait a minute, hold on. Let's before we get going, let me
Yeah, I could
do
say we
this.
gotta do a pour and
Yeah, we got to do a pour and something else for one of our,
yeah.
our lovely viewers that always
Yes,
shows
who's
up,
always shows up for
always
us,
here.
who has a birthday coming up.
The
We
birthday is
gotta give a
today, from what I remember. Listen,
yeah.
shout out to Lupita. Happy
Yeah.
birthday to you.
Lupita. Happy birthday,
Cheers.
girl.
I hope
Cheers.
you're drinking on something as nice as I am, because if this ain't good, I got something else to follow behind it. Cheers.
Hey. Yeah, well, we'll know right when you take this sip if that face go.
No, it's good. It's good. I didn't think it would be. Cheers and happy birthday. Glad you're
Yes.
here showing love as usual.
Always.
Yep.
She's always here. Her and Brick. Brick are
Oh
always
yeah,
those
you
two.
you already know. You
Oh,
already know. All right, so let's get into it. Let's get into it. Discussing the good, the bad, and the ugly of To Your Eternity.
you know what? You should keep us up like this.
I know
So,
it. That's what we're gonna do. That's
so
exactly what I plan on doing. Until he hops on, if he hops on or not.
we just
But
keep him
yeah,
off to the side. You can
yeah,
hear his voice, but you can't.
I'm fine with that. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Oh man. So
So, what's your good?
my good with this, I gotta say, the idea of trying to tackle the topic of immortality, very few anime and movies have done that properly. Like, I feel as though really getting into this idea of living forever, it sounds cool, But the fact that you have to witness people that you come to know, to love, die, I mean, regardless of what happens to you, you continue to live. It's kind of heartbreaking, right? You relive, you stuck with their memories, right? And those memories stay with you for a very long time because you don't die. And
Yep.
clearly, this kid is impervious to diseases. He's impervious to just dying in general. Like, dude got his head cut off a few times. I'm like, now that's the type of immortality that I like. Like, it reminded me a lot of Wolverine, where you're able to regenerate, like him and Deadpool. But at the same time, it was like each time he got quicker and quicker with being able to regenerate, which to me, I just thought was just hands down really cool. So
Yeah.
the whole idea of immortality and just the different characters and how they were helping him go along and showing this progression of him going from not being able to understand anything about the world to being very well versed in what happens in the world, I thought was pretty cool. So that's my good for now.
I like that. I'm gonna be right to the point as well. My good is just the entire concept behind it. Like I was just talking, before we hopped on camera, and the writer actually wrote this story based upon the loss of her grandmother, and there's some elements of that in here. And this thing was just, it was so real, it was so human. It had so many aspects in there, as well as the animation was crazy. The music, that intro music, I'm in love with that intro. I'm absolutely in love with it. I found the song, I downloaded it, I've been
Oh,
playing it around the house and stuff. But it's just a fire series. It's very good. It's very introspective. It's very deep. It has a lot of layers in there, and it definitely touches in with our experience as humans. And I just enjoyed it. I really did. I really enjoyed it a lot. So, what's your bad, if you got any at all?
oh, the bad for this, I think the bad for me is just said Fushi couldn't catch a break. Like that to me, it was like it's like, dude, could not catch a break at all. And I'm like, is he ever gonna be able to get over on something or learn something to imply? Nah, nah, it was like every single time. And I
Yeah.
think the thing for me is just the it was just that part of just the nonstop like the nonstop chasing of him. Like it was just this the main character, the main bad character, was really obsessed with him. Like once she saw him, she's like, I gotta get
Mhm.
rid of this guy. Like, and it was just that piece of it. It was just like he couldn't catch a break, and it was just like, okay, every episode, okay, he makes a little bit of progress, but then it would backtrack, and I was just like, okay, all right, please give me some good moments. Nope, every good
Yeah.
moment was always diminished or like just tainted by a bad incident that I was always following, and it was always like 10 times worse. I'm like, dang,
Yeah.
you he was a black person, how many problems he was having, like it was just bad. It was bad.
It was. It definitely was. I have to agree with you on that. And I want to say that I was really sad a lot of times with the experiences that he had, was going on with the relationships that he built, and the times that he lost people, considering that the initial stage of him wasn't that way. And I'm going to kind of leave it there. But I did
Yeah.
not like the amount of losses that happened and the things he had going on. But again, we're talking about the human experience. And for someone who lives forever, this is pretty much what's going on. So now, as far as ugly, what's your thoughts on that? What you got on that?
Man, I had to say my ugly for this would have to be, I think, just the idea that, I'm trying to think. There's a couple parts in there where it just kind of made me kind of take a step back. It was because of just the idea that, he was learning, but how long it took him for certain things to catch on, right? I think the other thing too is when you think about the actual characters, like the
Hmm.
one father who made it to the pirate island or the prisoner island, how they gave a little bit of context to him, but they didn't really explain him, right? Like they didn't explain, did he really do that to the mother? When he was out there trying to survive in the gladiator pit, you know, they showed him laughing because he was the last one standing, but then it was like, well, why did he do that? And his daughter really didn't give him the benefit of the doubt. And I'm thinking, your father was always there for you, was very loving. So why would you view him as such a negative light? Like you knew what he had to do to get out. And it
Facts.
did to me, it was just like, that was the thing for me. It was just like, when you think about the characters, some of them seemed a little bit one dimensional for me, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It was like they couldn't get out of this rut that they had them in. But I think for the most part, it was sad. It was sad from beginning to end. And that was the thing that made me ugly cry. And that's my ugly for this. Like it made me ugly cry. And I don't like that. I don't
I
like
like
that.
that. I agree with you because I'm gonna say that watching it, I was very disappointed that every time it seemed like he would like have this bond form with someone, they would be taken from him somehow, some way. And as I said, his initial thing that he came into this world is like just there's nothing going on, and to find these relationships with people and then it get taken away like so fast. Every person that he has an attachment to, everything that he attaches to, it's gone. Like you might find that moment of him being somewhat normal, somewhat human, and then up here we go, we got to take him out of there, we got to take this person off for whatever reason. It kind of reminded me of Game of Thrones, where anything goes. You have like no holds bar. Like if they want to take a character out, they don't give a
It's good.
fuck. They're
It's
gone. It's
gone.
over. It's over for them. And I was, I was definitely sad by it because I was attached to Fushi as a character. I was attached
Oh,
to the
a
people that
few
he
of
had
them.
around him. So,
A few of
as
them.
you can see my shirt right here, my
Gugu.
guy. Hey, he hopped on. That's my guy right there. So it was just a lot going on as far as that. And I really, really didn't like that he kept going through. But again, we're talking about human experience, and those things happen in life. So
I
that's
know,
it.
right?
I'm going to assume he's going to come back. So into the meantime, we're going to move on. Oh, and I will say this.
Yeah.
I did like that regenerative aspect. It definitely reminded me of
Right?
Wolverine too.
It
It,
did.
and Wolverine is my favorite Marvel character, hands down.
Hands
So
down.
I
Hands
was
down.
in love with that aspect.
Yo,
D, what's good,
What's
man?
going on?
D,
Excuse
sir,
me.
how are
You know
you?
this dope. These two jobs in these kids' diapers. You know what I'm saying? You understand what go down.
Daddy duties. I already know.
Hey,
I don't
let
know what
me.
that's like.
Yeah,
Again,
no,
hashtag no kid gang.
no kid gang. Stay on the
Yeah.
course, sus. Don't let them tell you no different.
Oh,
But
I ain't worried about it. Mm-mm. Ain't
uh,
gonna change me.
definitely no, definitely with the what we on? We on good, bad, and ugly.
Oh
Yep,
yeah.
we
Yeah,
were
you
just
just
about to
getting
move on.
in.
Go ahead. I gotta hear it. I gotta
What
hear
you
it.
got the good? You what we on? Good, bad, or which one we on?
Oh no,
We
we didn't win
we
through
did
it.
it
You gotta do
all.
all of it.
Oh,
We
yeah.
did
Let
it
me do my
all.
good, bad, and ugly real
You know,
quick.
we
So
should
Yeah.
put him up to just him.
yeah, my good hands down is definitely love the emotional aspect that it gives you as far as what is being human, what is when you're created, like what is your purpose. I think that question again, I haven't finished the whole series, but I think that that was really like a tug of war. And then honestly, for Fuji to be able to talk to the creator, which right now where I'm at on the episode, I think episode 13 or 14, where I just think the creator's full of shit. And I mean, and I think I kind of grasped without going towards the end what's really going on. And I think it's more so of his. And I could be wrong, but pretty much I think that he fucked up with his creations, and he's bullshitting Fuji, which is his last creation, is try to make him better or something. My bad though, definitely my bad. I gotta go with the creator. You know, the creator's full of shit, like I said before, and the brewer maker, he full of shit too, because he definitely did definitely did the man Gugu hella
Ooh,
wrong
ooh.
with the goddamn the liquor
Alcohol.
the distillery in his belly. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Even though he could use it to his advantage, but like that was just trash right there. Come on.
fact.
And then last but not least, my ugly, hands down. Uh, they killed off my boy Gugu, and I don't give a damn when nobody say he could have survived. That's bullshit. We all know it. Stop playing. The man had, but again, when you do right, a lot of the times you fall on the sword when you do right, and that was just,
Hey,
he fought more than a good fight. Without Gugu, you wouldn't have Fuji to grow as a character, to
fire.
as a being, and like I just was pissed off that Gugu had to go. But hey, it got me emotional. I was like, for Gugu one time. And before I get off what I'm drinking real quick, shout out
Yeah.
to the Rare Barrel called Hello Friends. This is a wet hop. Um, I don't know if it's a wet hop lager or IPA. God damn it. I didn't forgot. I think it's a wet hop.
He ain't come
Oh, there
prepared.
you go. It's a wet hop
Yeah.
lager. Look at me. It's a wet hop lager. It's fire. Only 5.5% ABV. It was good times. And then last but not least, because I didn't go anywhere else besides the Rare Barrel, to meet up with Dev from Bruce and Banner Podcast. Shout out to Bruce and Banner Podcast. Got to go ahead
Nice.
and drink mine
That's what's
again.
up.
This thing is aging very well. Um, every time I drink it, I get different taste to it. So, but it's still staying on to the point of a old fashioned. So shout out to Oak Park for brewing this with me. Shout out to the old fashioned. And if you in Sacktown, go get it. This thing is fire. That's all I got to say. Pour up. Let's get to it.
And as a matter of fact, I actually got a review coming for that soon, so expect that in the future. Yeah, yeah. All right. So, what was the first stage the orb experienced?
Oh, rock.
We're gonna start off with you. I'm gonna put you on a hot seat
man,
right now.
Yeah, I ain't got much time, so I gotta drop these hot fire.
You gotta do rapid fire.
So, I mean, he started off as a goddamn rock. All right, let's keep it 100. Like he hit a rock and he just laid in a rock, and he was a damn rock. And then he got some moss growing. So he went from a rock to bacteria growing on the rock, creating what we know as moss. And a living thing, but nothing that he could actually move with. And he just sat there for a very long time. And I was like, wow, what a way to start off.
Okay. All right. Look, and he's serious with that. He like, yo, rapid fire for real. All right, so what you got? You want to stay like this, or you want to get,
Oh, you know what? We could keep it like this. I would say, so the orb, yeah, when he first touched, like the first thing is when he came into existence, he was that white orb, right? Knew nothing, couldn't sense anything. He had not been stimulated in any way, because they kept using that word, stimulated. So, so the thing is that when he became a rock, dude was like, oh, okay, I'm just going to be chilling here. But, he was still experiencing things, right? He experienced cold, he experienced growth, he experienced all kinds of things. Like he was experiencing the air. And then when that wolf came and died on him, it was like that was the first time he actually experienced something besides the moss dying, right? Like the moss doesn't really, give off any sounds. It gives off pheromones and stuff. But the wolf was the first thing he actually experienced, like a creature actually living its last moments and dying. And that, again, was probably the first true stimulation that rock had experienced. So for me, it was like in that moment, he went from nothing to being able to be aware that there was something to, hey, now I can change it to a different shape of something that actually breathes, which I thought was pretty cool. So
I like that. I agree with you 100%. And I'm going to say the rock, but then he was aware once he became the wolf, because what he's based upon is he's sent out there for stimulation. So anything that stimulates him, whether it be positive or negative, he will get that energy and he can turn into it, or he can at least gain things from it and use it to create something out of thin air. You know what I mean?
Which is cool.
Forward. Yes. Now, he was the wolf first. That was the first time he actually had any consciousness or being aware of his surroundings, etc.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And then he met the boy who he had no idea he was actually his sibling or master or owner or whatever. But the boy was an unknown person. And his feelings, that relationship between the two created his first actual relationship with something living besides just being a wolf and being aware of the things around him. So I thought that was dope. I thought it was very, very interesting. And when you watched when the boy died, because the boy passed away.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord. I'm going to wait to that next question to talk about it. Because
all right. So I'm going to move on. I'm going to skip it. But he jumped right into being the boy. And it was just very, very interesting. And that first change, it blew my mind when it happened. I was like, oh, shit. Like, that's going on right now. So.
Again, pride.
It was dope. Yes. All right, so the next question. Who gave the orb a name, and what was the relationship between them?
Oh, yeah, let me go ahead and get that. I'm going to rapid fire real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, dude.
I forgot her name. I wrote it down, but it was a little girl.
March.
And where's the little girl?
March.
That's March. Yeah, that's her name. You're right. My bad. I didn't hear y'all. I was in my notes. So March, who played kind of like the mother role in the beginning, or what she thought was a mother role, but it really was, at least for Fushi, again, which is short for immortal, because I forgot what she used the entire name, what that meant in Japanese for immortal. So I just love that fact. And yeah, she played the mother role. I mean, like Fushi was literally turned into the human boy and was eating food like he was still a wolf. She was trying to teach him that. She was teaching him words. She taught him thank you. So she nurtured him like a mother would. And so yeah, that's what's up. So shout out to March, and March, that was another character. I was like, damn, man, like this man hitting some straight just some straight trauma left or right. And I'm just like, man, with the human experience, right? Man,
Yep.
Mm,
crazy.
Game of Thrones
mm.
all the way. Anybody can get it at any time. They not holding back. So it's what you got.
So I actually think prior to that, there's two different things here for me. So for Gugu, or not for Gugu, for the boy in the beginning, the one with the white hair that he's modeled himself after, I felt
Yep.
as though he was the first one who actually gave him the idea of responding to a name. May
Yes.
have been someone else's name. It was a wolf's name or a dog's name, but it
Yes.
was a name that he had associated with himself when he became conscious for the first time. And to me, that young boy served as a father figure for him because it was the first time that the boy, he met someone else who could actually talk, who interacted with him, gave him food, made sure he was, warm, looked after him, played with him, talked with him, all that type of stuff. It was the first real interaction he had with anybody. March help kind of like solidify that feeling of having someone actually show love for him because she was trying to feed him, she was trying to teach him how to talk, all these things. So to me, in his life, I think those two served as the mother and father figure for
Yeah, that's
him.
fact. I forgot about that name.
And
Joanne.
yeah, and so that to me were the two main relationships for him. That one that acknowledged his consciousness, and then the other one that affirmed that he was indeed a living being that deserved to have love. So those are two for me that I think really stuck out with the main relationships that gave him a name.
I like
Right.
that. And think about this. When he did that, he actually I'm gonna backtrack just a little bit. When he was interacting with the boy, remember when the boy gave him a piece of a fish head and he's like, "Hey, eat it. You don't know how to eat it?" Then he's like, "This was your favorite food."
Mm.
Little did the boy know this is some orb
Hmm.
or some being here that's not actually your previous dog or wolf that was your pet that you called Joanne or whatever. This is something completely different. It just so happened to model his life or be able to become it based upon a stimulation. So watching that right there was interesting. And then that relationship between March and him. March had him saying thank you. And it was funny because he was in the wolf stage and he was like,
Yes, when he did it. Thank you for the food. It's like, oh my
yeah,
god.
it was crazy. Like that was funny as hell. And then you watching him as the boy, like Dee said, he's eating these pieces of fruit, look like pears or something, on all fours. And he's a boy. Like pick the fruit up, hold it with your hand. March had to
Yeah.
teach him that. She had to teach him a lot of different things. She was like, when she kept throwing the fruit and he was following her, and she was like, she turned around and it had that emoji of like I love you, and she was like, oh, I'm
Yes.
your mommy now. That was
Yes.
so cute, and it made that relationship solidify. And it was sad when he eventually lost her because we already know what happened with that situation with the
Mm-mm.
story. So I really
Mm-mm.
really enjoyed that whole relationship, and I think that they hit right on the nail with that part. It's like the first people that are going to teach you anything that you experience in the world, your parents, your mother and your
Yep.
father. So
That's a fact.
that
Good.
was dope. That was
Suds, good
definitely
job
dope.
on that, Suds.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What was the next form of stimulation that Fucci had, and why?
Mm.
Because she
But
did give him that name, like you said. What
yeah,
was that next form
Fushi.
of stimulation?
yeah, I think Suds answered it. Of course, I forgot about the boy giving him a name, Joanne, which is really the wolf's name. So I was kind of like, I think for me too, looking at it like, okay, well, you're in an animal's body, so you're learning love from the boy, and like determination and things of that nature. I really think that it was a stimulation with March that was like, oh, now I'm considered a human, or and not even knowing what that is. You know what I mean, and I think that's the one thing that's great about To Your Eternity is this orb, this I mean, literally just unconscious thing becomes a being. So I think that interaction with March really um, provided that stimulation. And one thing about the stimulation, which is bittersweet, is that it's emotion that I think that is being referred to as from stimulation, and that emotion or that connection with whatever, whether it's a physical fight like with the bear, or with Fuji or with the boy, it's really just that emotional aspect. And then when they pass away, like it's just like, man, that's crazy. So and then he journeys into that realm too. So it's just a beautiful thing in that aspect.
Nice. Suds, what's your thoughts on it?
I think honestly, what I think is the coolest thing, like what Dee was bringing up, was how he's able to each new shape that he learns is driven by some type of stimulation, whether it's emotional or physical. But I think the interesting thing is that every time he's gone into a new state, he's learned a new emotion every single time. And so you see him starting to acquire more and more human-like features as he continues to evolve and grow, right? So to me, I thought it was very interesting that, once he meets March, he's learning how to feed himself, because what I thought was funny, when he was a boy still walking, dude died how many times? And I mean,
Like
sometimes because he
7 or 8
failed,
times.
right? Because he failed, died of starvation, like all these things he's learning, but he kept getting better and better as time went on. So she's teaching him how to eat, right? And he finally learns, okay, so I need to eat to get some substance. But then at the same time, they come across a giant bear who was filled with rage, like just pure, utter rage. And I think the thing for me was that when she does die because she was trying to protect the young girl, it just sent him into this fit. And the one thing he turned into was the bear, because again, what did he associate the bear with? Rage. And when he associates things with March, he just, there's certain people he would turn into at different times because he associated that emotion and also a physical thing about them that really stood out. So I always thought that part was pretty cool, like he was transitioning to each person on that one. So
you spot on with that. You took the words out of my mouth, because that's pretty much what I was gonna say. Now I got to come up with something a little better. But yeah,
be better. Be better.
that was it right there. That connection and relationship between him and March was good. That was the mother. But when she died, and he had already experienced what happened, the bear had killed him once. He had died like 6 times, and he's on top of the cliff, and then he turns around and there's this big angry bear. I believe the name was or Oniguma Sama.
Yeah, Oniguma, the god.
And that bear had killed him like it was nothing. So he comes back to life in like a thing of a lagoon or something.
Yeah, where March fell.
He has the relationship with March, and then after that she dies. And after he feels this rage, this human emotion, he becomes the person that he gained that stimulation from, which was March. He became her, and he used that for different reasons, whether it was to climb a tree, whether it was to feel a certain touch, or like feeling he wants to be back within her again. And just watching that whole experience was very, very dope, and it was very sad as well, because imagine you being in that situation where you meet someone for the first time and you actually gain a bond with them, like y'all hit it off, and then immediately, probably 2-3 days later, they're gone. And you've gained that relationship as if they're your mother or father, or just a close relationship in general. And he kept experiencing that over and over. So yes, that next one was that loss and that awareness that he finally had with her. It was taken away, again, because when he did it with Fushi, he did it with the boy, which we don't know the name. You watched him, like, as soon as he died, his body, like, he made a noise, a yelp, and the wolf sound, and then he turned into the boy, and it was like his body was trying to figure out what was going on. So to again go through that emotion and then turn into this girl who was your quote unquote mother was deep as well. So I like that. I definitely enjoyed that.
The one thing I will say before we leave this question, how messed up is it when they had this idea of, like, let's sacrifice children to this god so that we can continue on? Like, can you think about that? Like, a lot of cultures, like we heard about this, but that whole idea, you had to take a kid and they were checking them for certain things, but they never said what it was for, what they were looking for. But they take the kids, and then they
Pioran, she's, if I pronounce her name correctly, the old lady who picked Mark, she said, "Oh, you were the cutest." And I mean, like, but then she was enslaved. She was enslaved to that group, and I already knew that was bad news. And let me make sure I get their name right.
It's so bad.
Yanomi clan.
Yeah, but I just felt so bad.
So it was, it's pretty crazy.
You got to send your kid up there, man.
Like you mentioned, a lot of cultures.
It's like,
okay. So we seen that, and we seen the rage, we seen that loss and emotion with that. Next one I have, we already know what Dee's thought is on this person, but who was the Nokkers and the Beholder?
Yeah, man. So I mean, the Nokkers are supposedly the enemy from what the creator said. I don't know if the creator's name the Beholder. I don't even know, but
that's his name. The Beholder.
Okay, yeah. So the Beholder are the black
thing.
Black thing that Fuji calls them.
The
black thing. But the Nokkers are just this. They're to me they're exactly like Fuji, except without the they didn't get to just be dropped off by the beholder and just experience what it is to live in this world that you're in through the eyes of humanity. I think the Nokkers are just really just absorb. All they do is absorb substance, but by absorbing that memory or essence, they really just they kill off things. But again, with them, they only seem to, at least where I'm at, attack um, Fuji. But I believe just from the conversation up until episode 13 that Fuji and the Beholder are having, that this thing about, oh, they're inside of me like insects, or and this is when they're when they're in their larva form and their egg form, you can't sense them, but then you can sense them later when they hatch. Um, Again, I know they're tied in all too well, and I haven't finished this, so I'm not going to speculate too much. But yeah, I don't. The Nokkers to me are just these things that probably just been around, that don't really have the necessarily the ability to interact with people, just because of the way that they were brought about. And hopefully, again, as I finish this, that the Beholder will talk more to it. But like I said, I still think the Beholder's full of shit, because the man got way too much power and he could destroy these things. But I think that whole complex of when you have children, or you create children, at least from my perspective, from up until episode 13 of I don't want to kill my kids, but I was like, but your kids is trying to kill the last kid and then also killing people. So I don't really understand it. But yeah, that's all I'm saying on that.
Okay. All right, Suds, what you got on it?
So to me, I thought it was pretty interesting when you think about the Nokkers and the Beholder. Part of me, I can't. I think it was a young girl who was on the pirate island. She made a suggestion on this, which I thought was pretty interesting, about this whole idea of God. They talked about God, and I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if Fuji or Fushi, call him Fuji, dang, Fushi, if Fushi, it's kind of like when you think about a fallen angel, because you think about angels, right? How there's these beings that are brought about by God who, are able to kind of see humans for what they really are, but at the same time, they haven't had the ability to really experience mortality or feelings, emotions, right? And so to me, I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if Fushi was really a fallen angel and these Nokkers are what we would call demons? Because again, when you think about it, the beholder keeps telling Fushi, you have a purpose, you have a purpose. And it seems as though it was something with, to me, either preserving the world or doing something to preserve,
Yeah, he definitely
mankind,
talked about that. The Beholder
right?
definitely talked about that.
So it's like,
Preserving.
right. And so to me, it's like, okay, so if that's the case and the Nokkers are here to kind of, prevent him from doing that, it makes sense that they're latching on, because they themselves, because we know that demons are also supposed to be fallen angels as well, that they are, they're not able to really experience emotion. They can mimic as close as they can. They can
Exactly.
mimic, but
Yes.
they never get to that state. So to me, it just seemed as though they were like, well, why don't preserve it? Don't. Let's just take you out. Let me make it where you can't do that. And so they,
Oh, I'm
well,
sorry,
go,
Seth.
but I mean, it's that to me. I just think it's really interesting when you look at it. I think the Nokkers, and then here's the thing: if we don't even know who made the Nokkers, so to me, it's like, so here's the thing: it's like, did the Beholder make them, and they're just an experiment that got out of control? Because we know that happens sometimes.
all the
Or
time.
are there other creators like the Beholder who create these different things, and it's just to see which power struggle is going to come out on top? Like, to me, that just seems like that there's always this like balance they have with it, and they haven't really hinted at who actually created the Knocker, because I don't think they came out of nothing, unless we're doing an equivalent exchange where you have Fushi who's come up, so now there has to be something to balance them out. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that. I like that answer. Very, very well said. And I didn't expect that, like that play of quote unquote, good and evil, angels and
Mm-hmm.
demons. To me, I would say the beholder. We are all right. So the beholder is the creator, which in his mind, and you can tell by the way he carries himself, he looks at himself as God or a God. Um,
But he
I
could
don't
die.
really get a sense of like good or bad from him. I just get that he just is. He exists, and that's what's going on. It's just my opinion of him. Now the knockers or the Nokkers, however you want to pronounce it, they are emotionless, have no feelings. They just exist, and they are trying to stop Fushi, which we know originally is an orb, and that orb is sent here to gain all the experiences and absorb pretty much what happens and preserve what's happening in the world. It's like having someone create it's like having a griot. You have an oral history passed down, but in this case this person is writing down or physically remembering and experiences physically, mentally, emotionally, all these things, and they're going to preserve that. They was sent here to preserve it. But you have the knockers here to stop that preservation, and they want to gain everything on their own. And even if that means killing something and taking it off to become more powerful themselves. And we have no idea who they are. We just know they're there. And every time he gets in a good state, here they come again. Every time he gains a relationship with somebody, here they come again. So I have no idea who the Nokkers are. I'm just giving my perspective because they don't get into too much depth. But the beholder to me seems like a creator, but someone who feels like he's a god. And I don't think he is. I just think he feels like he is, and he wants to be more than what he actually is. Do you have something else to add before we went
No,
forward?
I was just saying that the beholder was definitely talking to Fuji on episode 13 about
Fushi.
yeah, Fushi.
That's
Yeah, I said Fuji.
Yeah.
See, look at me. Sus got me calling him Fuji.
I
Sus,
got you. I know
but
Fuji.
Fushi, when Fushi was like, you're more capable than me. You have more power than me. Why don't you just end it? And he was like, oh, or maybe let me not say he. The beholder was like, yeah, I could do that, but. And I was just like, okay, but I could control you to do it, but you still keep your consciousness. And I was like, what the hell does that have to do with the question that he just asked you about why you can't
Mm-hmm.
and then with the Nokkers, what he said to Fuji also in that episode, in the beginning of that episode, was that the Nokkers are. It's like they're. He said they were after. They were after Fuji because of his memories and experiences. But they weren't. To me, they weren't evil. They weren't like these entities. They weren't going around like killing everybody. The thing is that they were after this experience that Fuji was having, and I believe the beholder knew that, but and that's why I say like he's just full of shit and an asshole, just kind of like how goddamn that blue guy from the Watchmen is full of shit.
Oh,
But
Dr.
Oh,
Manhattan.
no, don't
yeah,
Dr.
Dr.
Manhattan.
Manhattan, don't knock
yeah,
him.
Dr. Manhattan just full of shit. But I mean, it
Mm-mm.
just to me it was just like I was like, man, like okay, it just didn't make any sense. And again, like I said, I'm not done with it yet. But so far, it's just like you don't if you're just creating things or like you're saying they're your enemy because they want to destroy you. Well, they want to take these memories and they absorb them. But I think they just to his point, the beholder's point, they just want to take. They want to absorb it all. So they just want all these experiences without going through the struggle, pretty much, without going through the strife and the trauma of like losing someone and having to deal with it, especially like what Fuji had to deal with Gugu. And that's why I say Google hands down number one, because Google was like really showing him things. He wasn't challenging him. He was like, these are things that you do. And like, you need to know how to do it and you're going to do it. And that was it. So I'm done with that.
All right. So, in your opinion, who affected Fushi the most? Not Fuji, Fushi
Yes.
the most, and why?
Come on, man. You already know, man. You got to give my boy Gugu. Gugu.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
Yes.
fact. Like, I mean,
Talk
like I
about
said,
it.
Gugu, like he was telling Fuji, he was like, how do you not know how to cook? You don't know how to hold like your utensils, none of these things. And but it really was that masculine energy but it was also masculine energy out of love. And it wasn't this hyper masculinity. It wasn't this toxic masculinity. It was like, you want to be a good person, but you have to put this work in. And I think Dr. Greg Carr, he mentions that a lot when he talks about roles that you have to play. And I remember a couple Saturdays ago in class with Carr, he was talking about fences and how Denzel
Mm-hmm.
Washington's character told his son, his son said, because he wouldn't let him play football and go to college and wouldn't play football, which again, that was more trauma on his side, talking about money, but we'll get to that. That's a whole nother topic. But he really was saying like, oh, you don't like me. And the dad was like, I don't have to. He was like, I don't have to like you. Like he was like, me and your mama figured that out. He was like, you
Facts.
rose. But he was like, what I'm teaching you is skills for you to survive, and to survive, you have to put in, you have to work, and you have to get money. And to tie that into what Gugu was teaching Fuji is that all Gugu knew was work. I mean, he came from let's be honest, he came from indentured servitude. And it wasn't enslavement, because there was no whips and beating, and there was no hanging and rape and all the pillaging. But it was definitely like, you're going to work this place as long as possible, and you're really an indentured servant. But Fuji, because of work, but his heart though, like I mean, we talk about heart and spirit and all this stuff like that. Who he was as a person, he was a good person, and he wanted to teach Fuji because he wanted a family. And not only did he want a family, he wanted someone that he could call brother. Or he wanted someone that he could not only either teach or rely upon. And I think that because Fuji was a clean slate, Fuji was a clean slate, and he wasn't really putting in a lot of negativity, which Gugu found from even his own blood brother, was a whole nother topic. I hope you got that question on that. But it just was it was a good thing, and I think that without Gugu, like for real, like I don't think Fuji would have been two ways actually. Fuji probably would have become more hardened as far as fighting the Nokkers and been more focused on that as the beholder wanted, but he wouldn't have learned to speak the way that he speaks now. He wouldn't learn to have the emotion to that level of what he had it, because he was even dealing with the trauma of losing Gugu, because Gugu showed strength and protected Fushi against the Nokker when he himself didn't know what to do, and the beholder wouldn't tell him either, except for like, you got to get the orb and kill it. So that's what I got.
Okay. Subs, what you got on that one?
Honestly, a part of me wants to say, I mean, I think Gugu was probably the easiest one to look at, but to me, I think it was the old woman.
Oh,
Nora.
Yeah, and the reason why, because of course, I think Marsh was another one as well, but the reason why I say the old woman was because she kept coming back into his life at different times when he was starting to just say everything. Like, I'm done. I don't care. I don't want to do this. Like, I'm just done, right? And I think each time she came in, it was at a point where she was kind of helping him indirectly get him back on track. So like when she first came back, because the beholder was talking to him and said, hey, you have a purpose. And he's like, I don't want to do this. Why do you keep asking me to do this? If people keep dying, I don't want to do this anymore. And he smelled her. And he's like, what is that scent? And he went chasing after it, and he saw it was her. And that was something that snapped him out of it. Because even then, when she was still with him for the first couple of days, he was like, I don't want to do this. She kept trying to feed him. He was like, no. She made sure he wasn't cold. She put the blanket over him. And he finally cracked. He finally softened. And that, to me, I think was a pivotal point. And even when after he came off of the little prisoner's island, right, he, again, was like when he was on the prisoner island, he went looking for her. Like, he could have left. He could have. He was like, you know what, I can get off of this island pretty easily. But he kept trying to find a way to get to her. He kept trying to find her, trying to talk to her. And he made sure to get her off of that island. But then when he found her again and she had, had dementia, again, he was like, I want to do something for her. I want to try and spend this time with her. And he was really deeply affected by her death, right? So to me, it was like, she was someone who, sure, he learned pivotal things from different people, but I think for her, it was that affirming for him that it's okay, you're going to make mistakes, but it doesn't mean you lose sight of what you're supposed to be doing. And that, to me, I think was something that was very important for him, because he, dealing with emotions for the first time, I think that she just really helped him with that, in my opinion.
Okay. I actually was going to say, and I'm still sticking on this, Gugu. Gugu is my guy. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I got to get that shirt, though.
Shout out to Gugu. You know what I mean?
Black Nerd Fridays, though. Holla at us. Hit us up.
Listen, I was going to cosplay. This was the only time I was going to cosplay. And this was the perfect reason, the perfect person. But I couldn't because they didn't have the mask. I was looking everywhere for this mask. Anyways, Gugu was the person I say that affected him a lot. Purin did have a huge thing, and I don't want to get into it because I have another question later on about that. But Gugu was the guy because Gugu, number one, had a brother that he didn't have before. His own brother left him, and I can't get too in depth because we'll be here for 3-4 hours because this show is that deep. Gugu's brother left him. Here comes Fushi, and they gain a relationship, and he didn't even care about him being immortal because he looked at himself as being unwanted or unaccepted by society based upon what happened to him. Why was he wearing a mask? Why did he do the things he did? And then he had the booze in his belly, the liquor in his belly, all that stuff. So he had gained a relationship. He gained a brother. And this is the first time you've actually seen Fushi age, because Fushi was actually around 12, 13 years old, maybe 14. Mentally and physically and stuff. But once he got with Gugu, he stayed there for about 3 or 4 years, and he had started growing hair on his face. He had, some maturity growing on and stuff like that. And that right there changed him like a lot. Then he actually had another, like he just had a whole family experience. He had Rianne, which was the rich girl, who gave Fushi the ring, Gugu the ring, and that was a whole another story, which is why he got the flowers on the shirt. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Gugu.
Man, shout out to Gugu for real, man.
You have all these things going on with his time with Gugu. And even when Google decided, well, I'm leaving. I'm going off on my own because he was had some things going on. Google was the person that gave Fushi the most experience. That's just my opinion. We could say Purin probably had that too, but I'm going with Google all day. That's just what it is.
Yeah,
Shout out to Google.
yeah.
Okay.
Piorin definitely was to Sud's point, she was just constantly there, and I think that's
Yeah.
something that he needed because she knew, just like when he was afraid to go in the forest because the first Nokker that he fought, he was like he didn't want to go into the forest to go chase after Gugu, and Piorin was like, nope, you gotta go get him. And then even Fuji was like, why is nobody going after him? She was like, you go get him. But it was a lesson because she knew if he stays afraid of that force, and that's again, that's back to that grandma mama
Ema.
type of thing. Like it's a fact, and I love her character. Don't get me wrong, because she knows what he needs, but he has to experience on her own. He has to experience that. And again, we're calling Fuji a he because again he's in a male body, but it's still an orb. But Fuji had to experience those things of you got to face your fears, and they may not turn out the way you wanted to, but you're not going to be as afraid as you were before. You're going to grow. And she knew when he needed a shoulder to cry on, and she knew when he had to have tough love. And that's again the thing that a grandma just know, man. So shout out to P Nori for holding it down.
Piorin, not P
Oh,
Nori.
Piorin.
He called her P Nori.
P.
New
Nori.
York from Yonkers.
Pinot Noir.
Piorin.
Okay. What emotions did you have when Fushi lost Gugu?
Oh man, come on, bro. You already know, man.
Anger.
This will probably be my last one though before I gotta go to my job number 2. But yeah, man, when Gugu died, spoiler alert, all this stuff, but when Gugu died, man, protecting Reina, I was just like, man, that's some bullshit, man. I just ain't even gonna lie. I was like, man, I was just like, come on, man. I was like, Gugu, you know what I mean? Got the yelling, you know what I'm saying? Because it wasn't just because he passed away, it's just because you saw his character grow, and he just wanted to, like, he respected people, and he didn't have like anger or anything. Like, he was frustrated from what his brother did, but he didn't hate his brother. Like, he just sympathized with him because of the situation after he experienced nearly death, when nobody wanted to come for him with certain situations, or they just pull him aside. Like, he just experienced things, but he still had that positivity and love for his other fellow human beings. That to me is why it hit so hard, because I was just like, damn. Because in reality, as I mentioned before, like, man, so many quote unquote good people, or people who really put others first, always get the short end of the stick. And a lot of the people who are don't see other people's humanity, or just say fuck everybody else, I'm gonna go get it, they live a very long life. And it also softened my hardness as far as feeling that way in reality. But at the same time, I was like, you know, if I was in there, man, I would have to really put some hands on some people for Gugu, like, one time, and it wouldn't have been no hands. But I'm gonna leave it at that.
Oh, okay, so what you got on that one?
I think for me, for Gugu, I just felt so bad for him because
Gugu,
because the reason why is because this dude, when you think about his past, right?
Come on.
He's thinking he had a family, kind of find out, nah, dog, you're just a servant.
You're just a servant.
You don't get to go to the new city with them.
You can't even go to the table until they tell you go to the table.
He said, wait. And I thought that part, and then you think about the time when you learn about what happened to his face, right? And just how his, just the fact that he was, considered to be a freak. People didn't want him in town. People looked at him like, oh, what's wrong with him? And he finally meets someone who isn't really human, and who is not taken aback by his face whatsoever, and is slowly learning about the world about him. He was like, hey, finally, I got somebody I can view as a younger brother. And they go and they do great things together. They still work for Booze Man, which I think he should have died, but that's just me. And they go and he fights with him hand in hand, like let's go to work with this guy, with this creature. But it was just so sad because when he died and he's thinking, oh, hey, this is great. I get to see people. We're about to go off into paradise. And he's like, wait, something's not right. Like that to me, I felt bad for him because he finally found someone who considered him to be a dear friend, who didn't care about how he looked, who viewed him as an asset. and he gets taken out trying to help protect him. And I just felt so bad because I'm thinking, dude had so much more life to live. Just like March, she wanted to grow up and be an adult, never got that opportunity. And so to me, it was just sad to see that again. Fushi not being able to get his stuff together, sitting up here saying, "I don't know what to do." And I'm like, dude, you can make things appear, like kill people, like do something. Nope, he didn't do it. So it's like Gugu to me just died. He died valiantly, but I still feel as though they could have done something a little bit different with that. Him and March. I'm like, you didn't need to kill them off. I was upset about that.
Yeah, he could have lived.
I think they did that intentionally to invoke emotion in you and cause you to have feeling. Specifically, it's just me with Google because I was watching it probably 1 in the morning at that time when that happened, and I'm telling you, I didn't cry, but tears came to my eyes because I had grown an attachment to this character.
That's a fact, man.
And what happened is I'm looking at him as someone you can look at in society that people just look at as an outcast or you're not accepted. And he's human just like we are. And for him to lose his life, protecting not only his person he called his brother, but this girl who was actually gorgeous, who loved him, who was in love with him, just like he was with her. And the funny part about it, the irony about it all, she found out who he was after he passed away. She got this ring. She's understanding the connection and why he's injured and stuff. So it just hit me differently.
I know.
And like Dee said, this sort of stuff happens all the time. The good people die young. They get the short end of the stick, and the nasty people who just they get rich and wealthy and they are just bad and evil people. They'll be here for 80, 90 years living it up while the good people are gone. So I was hurt for Gugu. I understood his story. I understood what happened to him and why it happened. And it was just such a twisted sense of fate, irony, loss. And I had a lot of emotions watching that scene. I really did, man. I'm telling you, I was pissed off. I was ready to cry. I'm like, how do you do this to somebody? But when you think about it, that's reality.
Shit happened all
this is
time.
This is supposed to be escapism, not me reliving reality.
No,
okay, you know what I'm saying? I'm not going to be sitting up here. I'm crying in real life. I gotta cry when I'm watching something that's animated. Now, screw that. We do enough.
You feel the pain.
I was crying.
I don't want the pain, man. The whole point is to watch an anime and be like, ooh, not crying.
I gotta see it. I gotta see it so I can be like, Gugu was a black story. The black story.
Listen, Gugu.
Yes, he was.
Without the hanging, without the lynching, without the raping, Gugu was the black person in that show. And I just, like I said, man, R.I.P. to Gugu for real.
Didn't
man.
show
Gugu
his face.
Real one.
He didn't show his face.
Before I get off of here, go ahead and drop that. Go ahead and drop that. That lower third, as Rowan Martin says. Go ahead and drop the question and let me get out of here and promote this next episode one time. So go ahead, drop this.
Oh, don't worry, I already got you plugged in for next week. That's already going down.
All right, man. Well, I'm out of here, man. I appreciate all of y'all. Thank y'all very much, Suds, Mr. Refine. Y'all hold it down, and man, for real, if you don't know about it, you got to know about it, man. It's coming next week. Let's go. I can't wait to talk to this brother right here. It's a fire. I ain't even read all the way through, but this damn thing got me full of emotion too. I'm out of here. One time for the one time, man. Suds, Mr. Refine, hold me down. Hold me down.
No doubt. You already know what it is. We got you.
All right, I'm out. All
right, bro. Enjoy the weekend. We'll hit you later.
All right, please.
All right, so what happened to Fushi often throughout his life? And I'm going to keep it like this for the rest of the show. What happened to Fushi often throughout his life? What did you think? What was like a pattern that was going on often with him?
Death. Like, that's the whole thing. It was just pure death all the time. I don't know. It was just something about it. I just could not get with, like, it was that, and also just a fact of constant, just having to always go over hurdles. Every single time he always had to go over hurdles. And he was constantly getting slapped in the face with, this is how it is. This is how it is. And it's like, after a while, it's like, I can understand why you kind of get beaten down. You're just like, I'm tired of it. I just don't want to do this anymore. So to me, I think it was just death. And then just him learning new emotions every time. But every time that emotion was learned, it was always accompanied with something that was a very strong stimulus, like every single time. And I was just like, he never had any, like, the moments of good were always overshadowed by bad.
Yes.
Every single time.
I was going to say more that he was experiencing death and that overshadowing of emotions with, some negativity. but more so, he was getting manipulated a lot. He always was in this constant state of battle with what do I do next? Because whenever I get attached to someone, they're gone. So, like you say, yeah, death, but he was always in this constant state of manipulation,
Right.
learning, also being stimulated, but being taken advantage of because he thought like after he left when Gugu passed and he decided to go on about his life, he was like, yeah, I'm done. Like I'm hanging it up. I'm just going on. Whatever happens to me, happens to me. Then he ends up bumping into Purin again, not Pinot Noir and Pirani.
Minori.
Yeah, he's sitting there walking. He bumps into her, and then that inspires him again to want to continue doing what he's doing. But in that process, they get taken advantage of, and they end up on this island, Jananda Island, I believe is what it's called, with all these prisoners. And like I
Yeah,
said,
but
if
it was
I
a
were to go
setup.
through, that was crazy. But if I were to go through everything here, we'd be here easily 3 to 4 hours because this is a very deep show. But I'm
It
trying
is.
to keep it short. So, anyways, he kept experiencing these different things, and I really, really was like, when is he gonna get a break? When is
Nope.
he ever gonna get a break?
I mean, he
So,
kind of did at the end. Kind of.
yeah, when I got something for that. I got something. So,
Kind of.
I got something for that. All right. Do you know the emotion Fushi felt last, and was it important to his development?
Man, I think it depends on when you say last, because if you're talking about when the old lady died, sadness. If you're talking about at the end, how when he saw the spore and he kind of chuckled, like, oh, here it is again. Those are two
Yeah,
different types of emotions that he felt, right? Like that to me, it depends on what you're talking about. So I think the last contact with the human, it was sadness. And I think it was just, again, he's like, here's another person that I'm adding to the memory bank of souls that, you know, I'm just going to have to live with him forever. And he's going to be able to change into her because he has witnessed her die or become nothing, as he had called it in the beginning. But I do think he found it quite. I did laugh at how when he saw that spore at the end, spoiler alert, and he just kind of laughed at it. He was just like, oh, here we go with this again. But as you can see, he looked to be maybe what 30s, 40s at the time.
yes,
Like
yes,
he's been on that island for quite some time.
yep,
The whole world outside of it, who knows? Actually, I don't know. I take that back. He looked to be 30 or 40, but I don't know how much time has passed. Because if he's one of those type of people like The Witcher, where they age very slowly, I mean, this could be a
yeah,
few hundred years past where he was last, right?
yeah.
Or it could be, a couple decades. We don't know. And that's something that I think is pretty interesting. Of we don't know when, like where it's going to pick up. Supposedly, we're supposed to get a new season next year. I think a
It's
season
supposed
two.
to, it's supposed to be in December, from what I remember.
Oh, okay. Because I was thinking either it's going to be this year or early next year. So it would be interesting to see
Yeah.
where they're going to go with it. I know it's a manga that this thing is written off of, so a part of me wants to go and read it to see like what to expect. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I think that at that point, his last thing with human contact was sadness, in my opinion.
I was gonna say the sadness, and I'm gonna go specifically by saying grief. Like I feel like he never, even when he lost Google, he never experienced that sort of feeling before. The longest attachment he had to anyone was Purin. And when he lost her, he just like she told him to go get what was it, the firewood or something like that, and go bring the firewood in because it's about to rain. And he comes back, and this is after him dealing with her dementia and all that stuff, and he's carrying her around, and she's like, "Oh, I want to eat," and she just ate like 5 minutes ago. He's like, "You just ate," and she's like, "No, I'm starving. You're not feeding me and stuff." So she's going through all these things, and he's going through the emotional roller coaster with her to walk away, to come back. She had made a deal with the beholder
Yeah.
to her life, and she's gone. So he's there, and he's just in the rain, just it's pouring on him, and he's just crying. And then, as you said, here you go, you fast forward to, we don't know, 30, 40, 100, 200, we don't know. I'm going to go with 30 or 40 years. He aged and he laughed. And that was just, it was like, I can't say irony, but it was like fated for this to happen, like what was supposed to go on. And it's leaving you a little cliffhanger to look forward to the next season, which is supposed to be coming, if not December, early next year, which I'm going to be on it heavy. And
Seriously, seriously.
this
I
just,
think.
it was a roller coaster of emotions just all
I
around.
know. I think the saddest thing with that is just a whole idea of dementia itself, right? Like the
Mhm.
person, if you've never experienced or seen someone who has dementia or Alzheimer's, it is one of those type of diseases that is just very heartbreaking to watch. It's the person becomes basically a shell of themselves, and it's only and depending on the severity and the aggressiveness of the disease, they get to a point where they don't remember who you are, and you could have been a life partner, you could be a child, right, a sibling, and they just won't remember who you are. And so you see that, and you see like the life behind the eyes has faded, and certain things will still kind of bring them back a little bit, like music or certain types of areas, but it's really sad watching someone go through that. And I've had personal experience with that, and it's really sad watching someone progress through that, because they get to a point where oh, they see your face, they remember you. Then it comes on, you have to remind them, and then it comes down to, well, who are you? Like, and that's just something that's just hard to watch. It is really, really hard to watch.
I was expecting that answer because I knew you had went through that personally, so you can relate to it.
Yeah,
And
that hit me
it's
hard.
just it's a very very sad thing, and a lot of times we take that sort of stuff for granted. And if like in this culture, this is supposed to be Japanese culture specifically, they'll take their elders in and take
Yes,
care of them until they pass away, until they make transition, as we say. We don't do that a lot of times in our culture. A lot of times we put our elders, our grandparents, our parents in nursing homes.
we don't have the time. We don't have the time nor the money. I mean, it's
Um,
expensive.
if that happens, like God forbid, I get to that, a family member of mine gets to that state, like my mom, she's coming in with me. You know what I mean? And
I
y-
think that's the way
you
to do
know,
it.
yeah,
I
you
mean,
already know. So we ain't gonna
that's,
get into that.
yeah,
I
that's the
was
best
gonna
way to
say
do it.
what was the purpose of the story. That's another question I had, but I feel like we kind of touched on it, which was to me, and I'm just gonna put it up here.
Make you cry. That was the whole purpose. I don't care what
That was
nobody
it.
said. To
But
make
it
you
was
cry.
it was that human experience. You know what I'm saying? Just that human experience overall, and what we go through as people, what happens to us day to day, the traumas, the good times, the bad times, the ups and downs, and that's what I got out of the story. And like I said, the writer wrote it based upon experiencing the loss of her grandmother and it inspired her to write this story. So that was my thought on. Did you have anything you want to add to that?
No, it's just if you're one of those type of people who cries easily
Mhm.
from commercials, movies, books, just in life in general, just be prepared to be a little teary eyed when you're watching this, because it's just one of
Facts.
those where you get attached to characters and then they die.
Facts.
So
All
it
right.
is.
So this is the last question I got here, and you hit it. That was perfect. If you could be immortal, would you?
Listen, a part of me wants to say yes, because I'm curious as to see where we end up as a society. Like, I
Mm,
am very curious if we're ever going to get past the stage of trying to kill each other and really reach a level of enlightenment where we get to actually go and explore the stars and go and inhabit other planets and maybe see other types of life forms, or just what is out there at the very in reaches of the universe. And who knows if the multiverse is really real, which they keep saying that it is, being able to actually see another version of yourself. Like, it reminds me of like the movie The One with Jet Li, which is one of my favorite
yeah.
movies.
Yeah.
If you think about just how they put it in comic books, they did that with Final Crisis in for the DC universe, and for you
That
know
was fire.
for Marvel they do, of course, they're doing the multiverse with Doctor Strange. They
Yeah.
talk about it all the time. So to me, it's like, if you get the opportunity to do that type of stuff, yeah, I would love to. Would love
Hmm.
to see what that's like. But then at the same time, there's the downside is that everybody that you know and love, you have to watch them die. So that to me is just like, sure, you could have multiple lovers over the course of multiple lifetimes, but it won't be the same. There's going to be some person in your life that you do fall in love with. It's not going to, regardless how great other people are that come into your life, you're not going to be that person. Or if you have a great relationship with your parents, right, or your siblings, once they're gone, sure, you could have a close relationship with people, but it would never be the same.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's a tough one. It is really, really tough. If I think about my life now, I don't know. I don't know.
I'll answer that, but I'm gonna say I wouldn't want to be. I think that the beauty of us as humans is that we are able to die and experience death. That is a part of life. That's a natural
Yeah.
part of life. And to cheat death, if you will, or be living forever, you get to watch everyone that you know and love. They'll go before you. Anybody that you meet after that will go before you, and that would be a very long, agonizing life. And I wouldn't want to experience that. I like to be able to live my short time in this world. Like this movie I watched, he said we only here for a cup of coffee. I want to just be here for that cup of coffee. I don't want to be here for that big gallon and just keep refilling coffee over and over and over. I want to experience the things I experience and then pass on. And hopefully I can pass on some of my time on this planet to my kids and to people that I touch in life. That would
Mm.
be beautiful to me. Now, I have said, yeah, if I could be immortal, I would want to be like a vampire or something like that. But
Yo,
when you
yeah.
think about it, it's not really that good. It's they make it like romantic. They
Mhm.
romanticize being immortal, and I don't know. For me
You
myself,
know what?
I wouldn't
If
want.
you're able to take someone else, like make them also immortal with you,
Yeah.
cool. Okay. That'd be great. I think that would be the only way that I would be like, okay, I could do that. But
Hmm.
I do think what was interesting, and I've heard they've said this phrase in the anime, and I've heard this before about you basically die twice. Once when you leave the physical form, and the second time when your name is said the last time. Then that's the way the original phrase goes. And
Really.
in the anime, they talk about it where she said, when someone finally forgets you, when you're truly forgotten, that's when
Hmm.
you actually do die. And I think it's very interesting because when we think about immortality, a lot of people just think simply with the physical form of it.
Yeah.
When you think about a lot of the historical figures that we're still hearing about hundreds of years, sometimes thousands of years afterwards, these are people who were still being talked about. They're in history books. We have statues after them. We have movies after them, like all these type of things, and they're continuing to live well beyond their years. So I think in that regard, if you had a type of impact where you become a historical figure, I think that's pretty cool. But at the same time, that emotional connection that you've had with people is not there anymore. Sure, we can pass down stories, but that immediate emotion that someone would feel when they think of you, that
Hmm.
I think is gone at that point. So to me, it's like, being immortal, as long as you can bring someone with you or a couple people with you, that's the only way I think I probably want to do it.
Yeah,
So
you trying to cheat. I ain't trying to do all
I'm
that.
trying to cheat, man. Hey, listen, you ask, listen, we talking about fake,
Yeah.
universes. I'm gonna try and bring people with me. That's just me.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
But it would
Well,
be consent. I would have them consent though.
and
Not like the vampire. Oh, you didn't want to do that? Sorry.
oh,
Okay.
sorry. I guess you stuck here
You
with
gotta
me
go
now.
stand out in the sun then. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're stuck with me here now. All right. Well, this wraps up our show. Before we do
Yes.
that,
Yeah.
this
What
is
we
what
doing
we
next
talking
week?
about next week. So this was the end of my month of October. It was a
Yes.
great month. I thank
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody who showed up this month. But we passing it on to D. He got some people coming through next month, and we are talking about the last salvation. Excuse me, the last children of Andromeda, Time and Salvation 2052. The author is Jason Michael Primrose. It's a brother. I can't remember what state he's based out of, but I do have the book. I have not started reading it yet, but I'm a fast reader. I'm probably not going to finish it. I'm not even
The
going to lie to
book's
you. I'm
not
not gonna
this
finish it.
thick. Let's just
Yeah.
see.
If I had time like I used to when I was a teenager, I could finish that book in a day.
How
I don't
many
have
how
that
many
time.
decades ago was that for you though?
Oh no, just
It's
be
a
quiet. You're trying to
real
reveal my
slow,
age
man.
here. You know what I'm saying? I'm just 20 years ago, but
Well, men
ain't
don't
nobody.
care about age. It's okay. You can state your age,
You know,
boo.
I think I slipped it in there. If you heard it, you heard it. If not, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? But
Oh, yeah, D takes over next month. I'm excited
yes,
because he's actually having a bunch of guests. So I
yep.
think every week he's going to have a guest. So you
Mm-hmm.
won't just have to see our three lovely, beautiful faces. You get to see other people who are creators within the space who have written comics, who have written books. And I think they're all writers, if I remember correctly. I think all of them
Yeah.
are in some shape or form with a comic or with a book. So it's going to be a graphic novel. So it's going to be really interesting to see that. But he takes over next month, and I'm taking over in December again. So it's about to be five, just five. But
Facts.
I'm so excited for this. D, I think, always picks really great stuff. Mr. Refine, this month has been quite interesting. You've made me cry more than what I needed to this month. So
I'm
I
glad I was able to do that. I'm definitely glad I was able to do that. That's a good sign right there, always. Well, guys, thank y'all so much for showing up for another episode of Black Nerd Fridays. Black Nerd Fridays. Lupita, happy birthday again to you.
Happy birthday
Cheers
again.
again. You know what I'm saying?
Turn
We
up.
post it up for you. And we appreciate everybody. We'll see y'all again next Friday, every Friday. Black Nerd Fridays, y'all. Peace.
Peace.